Hello and welcome back to another update where we cover the latest developments throughout the front line in the Israeli-Palestinian war. This is the last update before the ceasefire, which will last at least 4 days if everything goes to plan. So what we're seeing is that the Israeli forces managed to advance in multiple directions. First up, in the southwestern part of the Gaza city area, we see that the Israeli forces advanced further in the direction of the river line that separates the north and the south. We see that they managed to reach the park area and the open areas here in the southwestern parts, and after capturing the hospital here in the southern parts. As for the central parts, we see that the Israeli forces managed to advance and close the gap here in between the two advancements, allowing them to have full control over the area. However, despite having control over the area, the Hamas forces likely still have tunnels in the area, allowing them to ambush Israeli forces in this section. So we see that the Israeli forces have made significant advances here in the western parts of Gaza City. With these developments, we see that as the ceasefire happens, we don't see the Israeli forces having a front line by the Salahuddin Road, but instead a bit from it. Moving to the northern part, we also see here that the Israeli forces managed to advance. They managed to capture the Children's Hospital and other areas here in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip. We see that they are now further within the Jabalia camp area and now are in control of half of Beit Lahia area. So with this, we see that the Israeli forces are likely trying to close this area, similar to how they closed the southwestern part of Gaza City. And they'll likely also go to try and cut off the Beit Hanun area here in the northwest of the Gaza Strip area. So we'll likely see an incursion by Israeli forces in the southeast of the current fighting. So we're seeing that the Israeli forces are doing a lot of these maneuvers, but with this ceasefire, we likely see that Hamas fighters will take the most advantage possible of it, allowing them to relocate, rotate, and prepare their new lines of defense, try to establish proper positions, scout the Israeli positions, and so on. Meanwhile, the Israeli forces are limited to 6 hours of aerial reconnaissance through the day, so this puts them on almost equal parts, especially with the Palestinian forces already knowing all of the tunnels and so on, allowing them to then have the advantage when it comes to spotting opponent forces. And we see the Israeli forces will have to try and look for every single tunnel entrance and so on, while the Palestinian forces can just look for the areas where the Israeli forces are by the front line. We will also see Hamas forces likely scouting beyond the front line, try to locate behind the front Israeli concentration of forces, whether it be tanks, soldiers, and so on, and then prepare some rocket assaults on these positions, as they have smaller, short-range rockets that are more accurate, similar to rocket-propelled artillery. So we see that the Hamas fighters will likely make use of the ceasefire to establish positions for these rocket strikes, and then try to detect Israeli position and concentration of forces to then launch these attacks. I'm not sure about the details, but this could likely be in violation of the ceasefire, considering how the Israelis were forced to accept limited reconnaissance using their air force over the Gaza Strip, specifically the southern Gaza Strip, but also the northern parts, limiting it to about 6 hours a day. So with that, it is likely that this could be a breach of the ceasefire, which would mean that it would be unlikely that Hamas forces would do so, but there's still the possibility that they will. In the end, what we're seeing is about 4-day break, which would mean that both sides will use this time to prepare for the next stage of the conflict, which will be storming the center of Gaza City, Jabalia camp areas, and so on. So this will be the heaviest fighting we have seen so far, as we're deeper and deeper into the urban areas. We'll also likely see the Hamas forces and the Israeli forces rotating their forces by the front line, adding new, fresh troops, combining them with the troops that have been fighting so far, and also retreating the wounded and so on to the back line, allowing them to recuperate and possibly fight again. So we're seeing that this is just a pause. There's no peace, there's no anything. It's just a temporary pause to the fighting. And that is all for this update. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.